All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You'll give me a moment. Gotta go harass people on the internet, try and get them to come over here. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that's going to be very inflammatory. I have a less than commonly accepted viewpoint on the subject, so this should be fun. I'm very excited. Don't forget that if you get any use out of the stream, to go ahead and leave that like and subscribe. Very important for helping the channel grow. Okay. So first things first, I want to address the title of this stream, and that is The Rise of the Machines, How ChatGPT and Midjourney Are Threatening the Future of Creative Jobs. And I want to address that. As you can see, I wrote my title and my description for this using ChatGPT because I do that all the time. But the reason I put that title in there is A, because it's just clickbait, and people who hate AI and who believe that AI is ruining the future of human creativity and all of that are going to come and join because of that title. And also because it's 100% true. It is absolutely threatening the future of creative jobs. And I don't see any problem with that. And I want to explain why. This is something that has been happening in human culture forever. We have constantly been devaluing the end product of human work. And the reason for that is because despite what so many people have told you in the past, the only thing that matters in a human economy is human time and energy. Period. And so the end product of all of our work is completely valueless outside of the work that a person would need to do to achieve it themselves. And so as we create more and more advanced technologies that reduce significantly the amount of human effort required to complete a task, then we are simultaneously drastically reducing the value of that end product, because that end product on its own has no value. Right? The potato you pull out of the ground only has value to you because of the time it took for you to grow that potato. If there were no people, then that potato wouldn't be valuable to people because nobody would need to eat it. The book that you write only has value because of the time it would take for another person to write that book. And so they value it in that they are going to purchase it from you to save themselves the time it would take to create it. And so what creatives are seeing now is something that has been happening to a lot of people with a lot of other talents for an extraordinarily long time, and that is the devaluing of their end product due to the drastic and sudden reduction in the human time and energy required to create that end product. We're actually going to start all the way back with the advent of agriculture. And honestly, you could even go further back than that. Once upon a time, human beings hunted barehanded, right? We didn't necessarily always use tools. And then we created spears and slingshots and bows, and all of these things ultimately devalued the work of the hunter. Because all of these things made hunting that much faster, that much easier, and that much more accessible to people of lesser skill and talent. And so the value of the meat from that deer that you hunted was reduced. When we started developing better ways of gathering, right? When you went from picking individual berries to shaking a branch so that a bunch of berries fell out and then gathering them up much more quickly off the ground. And then we learned that you could lay a blanket down and then shake that branch and then just gather up the blanket instead of gathering up the individual berries, right? As we have progressively improved our ability to do things, we have devalued the end product of those actions because we have reduced the human necessity behind completing those things. And we have been doing it forever. And it has done a lot of wonderful things for humanity. And it is not a bad thing. You want people to need to spend less time to do everything, because it means that each person has more time to do anything. And that is how our society progresses, and that is how we develop new ideas, and we develop new industries, and we develop the ability to go beyond what we are today. It's how progress works. You can't have progress if 100% of your time is absorbed with the sustainment of your life. And so we're reducing that. And reducing the requirements of creativity is another step in that process. And it is going to drastically devalue the end work of anything that can be created by AI. And as we create more and more impressive AIs, and as we create AIs that can do more and more things, then we are going to continue to devalue those end products. Not that those end products aren't going to be good, right? We still want art, we still want books, we still want all of these things. But their monetary value, their time value, the amount of human energy involved is reduced to a point where they can no longer be sold. And this is absolutely happened in other industries that we are currently subsidizing. So let's go back to the farming and agricultural ideas here. Most of the advancements early on in human history were, not most, basically all advancements early on in human history were completely related to agriculture, hunting, gathering, these things that allowed us to produce food, because primarily that was the problem that people were faced with, right? Every single day you had to get food. Every single day you had to get water. Every single day you were just constantly repeating these tasks. And so at first we were trying to get more food than we needed just for one day so that there would be a surplus tomorrow. So if we maybe didn't get any food, we'd still have some. Right? And we started pushing that, and we started pushing that, and we started pushing that further and further and further until in modern times, we create so much food that ultimately it has no value, because the amount of time required per unit, right? For example, if you were a farmer and you grew potatoes, the amount of time required for you to grow the amount of potatoes that a single person needs to be able to eat for their entire year is extraordinarily small. because most of the work is being done by a tractor. It's being done by, we add pesticides and fertilizers and things like that to grow more, faster, better. We've done genetic engineering to create better strains of potatoes so that we grow more, better, faster potatoes. And we've gotten to the point where we can grow so many potatoes that we can't sell them all. It's impossible. There is not enough demand to meet our supply. And so governments across the world drastically supplement farming and agriculture and mandate the destruction of some crops and some foods because we have to artificially create a scarcity to allow for those things to have enough value that they can be sold by those farmers at a high enough price to sustain their lives, because we have to have those farmers, right? They need to be growing that food, and if they can't sustain themselves, then they'll stop doing it, then there won't be any food. So we have gone well beyond the need, basically, to grow food because we're so efficient at it that the value in human time and energy is almost zero. And so we artificially create a need so that those people can make a living. And the same thing is now going to happen in the creative world, right? For all of human history now, our advancements in growing food and in getting food and creating shelter and all these things have propped up what I'll call the non-necessity jobs, which are creative jobs, right? Your artists, your writers, all of these individuals who the things that they're doing are absolutely not necessary for human life. And so because they're not doing things that are necessary to maintain their lives, somebody else has to be doing that thing on their behalf. And then that person provides them with the necessities for their life in exchange for the creative things that they did. And we do it with doctors, and we do it with people who are doing research and development into technologies, and we do it with all of these different individuals, right? We're propping up these non-necessity jobs by drastically increasing our ability and efficiency when it comes to those necessities. And the natural progression of that is that we are now going to be drastically reducing the amount of effort required to do these creative jobs as well. With things like AI-generated art and AI-generated writing and what is in the future going to be AI-generated movies, and beyond that we're going to have AI-generated all kinds of things. And because the human aspect of that endeavor is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller, the value of that end product is less and less and less because there's no longer a barrier of time and energy to stop the person who previously was propping up that industry by doing additional work and helping this artist, like growing enough food for this artist, right? So they would do twice as much work as they needed to grow food for themselves, to grow food for this artist, and in exchange the artist would create art and they would give them food, and then they would both have art and food. Well, when you take out the human aspect, then there's no longer any need for this individual who was growing potatoes, right, to prop up the artist, because now the amount of energy required on this potato farmer's part to create that art is just a few keystrokes, and then they can have all the art that they want. And so we're now putting our creative industries in the same position that we have already put our necessity industries, right? Our home building, because we build homes at an extraordinary rate. It used to take a lifetime to build a home. It used to take a whole family a lifetime to build a home, and then you pass that home down through generations. Today, we can put homes up in days with materials that are drastically better than the log cabins that they would have had. Much larger homes, much more insulated homes, just better homes in every way. We don't do that, right? We create this artificial scarcity to maintain the value of those homes and to keep the value of those homes rising because we see them as an investment. But we've done, right, all of this is extremely artificial. And we do it with every industry that we make obsolete. And we've made a lot of industries obsolete. I mean, they are pointless, except for the fact that we have to do them. And so because of the way our economy is run, because of this system of capitalism that we have, and because of this idea that we have that there's a certain amount of time in a day that a person needs to be doing X, we've created a world where as we remove the need and the value of different industries, we have to start artificially creating value in those industries so that our system can continue. And creative industries like writing and art are going to be the next ones that have to be artificially propped up in that way. And eventually we're just going to have to realize that the system of economics that we currently prescribe to does not work. Period. If it did work, then these advancements would have been overall improving the livelihoods of people involved in these industries. Right? Being able to grow more potatoes would have improved the livelihood of the farmer. We have instead seen that farmers and ranchers and food creators in the developed world get paid the absolute bare minimum possible to keep them continuing to work their land. And beyond that, they are not paid by the corporations that profit from purchasing those potatoes, right? The end sellers, like your grocery stores and your supermarkets. They are primarily kept operating through subsidization from governments because they are an industry that we cannot have collapse, because if there's no food industry, then we just have starving people. And it should not operate that way. That should be impossible. And in fact, capitalism says that it is impossible. It says that competition in a free market is the only way to get the true value of a good. And so the better and better we get at growing food, the more and more competition that should generate, right? Because now I can grow all the food I need in a smaller area at home. So I generate competition. So every single person in the United States creates this competition, and that's why food costs don't go beyond what they are, because at some point you're just going to say, well, this is stupid, I'm not going to buy food anymore, I'm going to do a hydroponic system at home, or whatever it is. We've gotten so good at growing food in small areas in large amounts that everyone is a competitor to that industry. And capitalism and free market economy says that's great, because now we're getting the true market value of those items. But we've already put the lie to that, because we already throw away millions and millions of pounds of food every year. We subsidize those industries because the requirement of those industries to be profitable, because of the system of economics that we use, forces us to create artificial markets to maintain the value of those goods at a level that is acceptable to keep the people who work in those markets working. And that's insane. And the same thing is going to happen to your creative markets. And I don't know how we're going to artificially... I mean, I guess we're going to do what so many people are already demanding we do, which is find ways to identify AI works and find ways to root them out and then say, okay, well, this was created by AI, so it's not okay, you can't have it. So we're going to create this wonderful tool that means that anybody in the world can create anything in their mind almost instantaneously and have this wonderful art or this wonderful writing or this wonderful whatever. And immediately after creating it, in order to maintain the artificial scarcity of art in our society, we're going to say, no, well, it's just not acceptable. It's not good. It's not real. Because a human didn't do it, so it's not art. Or a human didn't do it, so it's not writing. A machine can't be an author. And you're going to take that ability away from people so that we can prop up an industry and keep the individuals who are doing it working in this just made up ridiculous garbage of an economy that we've decided to create for ourselves. At some point we have to recognize that we have gone so far now into limiting the amount of effort and time a human being should be required to put in to sustain the necessities of their life, that there is no longer any point in the economic system that we have. Because it is minutes a day at this point. Because of the advancements that we have in industry and technology, to build a house, to grow the food you need, to sew the clothes that a single individual requires, right? To really meet the material necessities of a human being. And even beyond that, to get you a phone, to get you a computer, to maintain and upgrade networks. I mean, you're talking about minutes a day per person across the entire world to do the things that are required for people to be able to survive. And all of the other time that you're spending, the other 39 and a half hours a week, well, we'll say minutes a day, so we'll say the other 37 hours a week that you spend at work are about propping up industries that don't provide those material necessities and propping up a class of individuals that are funneling the time and energy of every human on the planet for their own interests and their own ends. And it is a very small class of individuals who own everything and who funnel all of that extra work. And they keep telling us that, you know, there isn't enough extra. You can't be paid anymore because we need to make this profit, or you can't be paid anymore because then we would have to fire a bunch of people, and then there would be tons of homeless people, or you can't be paid anymore because of this or that or the other thing. Well, they rake in record-breaking profits every single year. And it is because as we have devalued the end product by reducing the ultimate necessity of human involvement, they have continued to demand more and more of your time to access that end product, and then they have taken that surplus for themselves. And we have to get out of this economic system, because it's now going to happen to creatives, and eventually we're going to run out of industries that need that sort of human involvement. I mean, even doctors, which you would think is one of those things that is almost immune because it's such a dynamic field, right? You've got surgery, you've got diagnosis, you've got constantly new things are evolving, new illnesses, new we learn new things about the human body, and so we find new treatments, and we're constantly developing, and there's so much research and development. But artificial intelligence is going to take a lot of that as well, and there's going to be less and less human interaction there. And then you're not going to need to go see a doctor. You're just going to get online and talk to an artificial intelligence about it, and it's going to tell you what you need, and it's going to prescribe you the proper medicines, and that's going to be wonderful for society. But we also prop up doctors in that same fashion. Somebody creates the necessities of their lives and trades those necessities for their time as a doctor. And that industry is going to go away. And when there are no more industries to prop up, because all of it has been reduced to where human interaction is completely negligible and a single individual can sustain for themselves all of their needs with very minimal interaction with computers and machines and different things, then there will be no more ability to impose those long work periods on an individual anymore to siphon off that additional work and that additional time and energy spent by saying, well, you need to spend all this time and energy so that we can have doctors. You need to spend all this time and energy so that we can have all these other things. It's going to completely destroy the facade that has existed for generations now, that has kept people working those long, long weeks that are just completely unnecessary at this point. And so I am hopeful for the future of AI eliminating jobs. Because we're at a point in human history where jobs are stupid. There's no reason whatsoever for people to be working jobs. We need to remove that word from human vocabulary. Everything that you should do should be about what you enjoy. If you like gardening, wonderful. If you like writing, wonderful. Do you like being an artist? Wonderful. You should do those things. But we have the ability to do them with such an incredible efficiency that there should be no demand on your time to do them. So yes, ChatGPT and Midjourney are going to take your jobs away. And you should absolutely be elated about that. No more writing speeches. No more copywriting. No more writing books, because static stories are completely dead now. Right? We now have this wonderful ability to dynamically write a story about anyone, about any place, about any time that we want. And that story is just for us. And we can read it right here on ChatGPT. And it's already here. Right? And this is a very basic version of what the future AIs are going to look like. So I think people are looking at this idea that all of these creative jobs are going away from this alarmist point of view. And I understand. I mean, capitalism has an absolute stranglehold on global economy. And if a switch isn't made, then it's going to be horribly detrimental to people who are living through capitalism, who are creative, who are going to lose their jobs. We need not just to continue advancing AI so that we can stop having to put in the work, we also need to change the way our economy is structured so that when we don't have to do the work anymore, it cannot be demanded of us anymore in order to survive. And we are currently going down that path, right? We're currently going down the path of, well, we've made everything super duper easy, but we're still going to make you do it for 40 hours a week, or you can't have food today. And then all of that extra time and energy is just going to keep getting funneled up and up and up, and the wealth inequality is going to explode, and it's already been exploding. And we're going to continue to let that happen. We're going to continue to see it happening, and it is going to be outrageous. And there's going to be no coming back from it at one point. So this is not a question about, is it ethical to use AI to pursue artistic endeavors? Because it absolutely is. It's a tool. You should use it. If you want to write a story, then use ChatGPT to write your story. If you don't want to use ChatGPT, then don't. But if you're interested in using an artificial intelligence to assist you in writing a story so that you can read that story, or writing the story for you so that you can read it, then you absolutely need to and should be doing that. The problem is not that AI is going to be taking away people's jobs. The problem is continuing to allow the economic system that is imposing this necessity of work above and beyond the requirements of sustaining all life on Earth, so that a few people can pull more of that product for themselves and then use it to their own ends, because they're researching and developing things that are interesting to them. They are progressing humanity in a way that suits them, and they're doing some of it even behind the scenes without your knowledge. And they're hiding a lot of what it is they're trying to research and develop from the people who are ultimately funding and doing that research and development. And so we have to escape this economic system and move to a system where anything that you do above and beyond the sustainment of your life is for you to decide the result of. Right? You put in the 30 minutes a day, or the hour a day, or even if it's 4 hours a day, whatever, that it requires to sustain your life. And then if you do something beyond that amount of time, then you need to have more control over the outcome of that additional work and time. It should be for creative endeavors that you're interested in. It should be for, maybe you want to prop up some research and development, right? You want to do some additional gardening, or some additional food growing, or some additional house building, or whatever, so that somebody who's maybe super smart can do some research and development. That's fine too. But it needs to be your decision. It needs to be uncoerced. And you need to be able to choose whether or not and how much of that time to spend doing that. Because we are spending collectively as a society entirely too much of our time sustaining our lives. And there are entirely too many people with a quality of life that is well under acceptable who are working those 40, 60, 80-hour weeks. And there's just no reason for that. We are taking so much from those people that it is absolutely unacceptable. There is no reason. Because all that work is needed, right? Somebody has to make the food for people. Somebody has to grow the food. Somebody has to do these things. And so if somebody is putting in more than their fair share and getting out less than an acceptable quality of life, that means that that person is particularly being taken advantage of. We are taking more from that individual than any other individual in the world. No matter what it is they do, no matter how you feel about their job, I don't care if they flip burgers, I don't care what it is, it's all something that has to be done. And we are demanding more time and more energy from those people and giving them less. If you see a poor person, you shouldn't think, oh my gosh, that person is so lazy. You should think, oh my gosh, we are ruining that person's life and taking so much from them. Because there is no need for anybody to work that many hours to sustain their life. That person is sustaining 4 or 5 other lives while not getting the quality of life that they should be getting themselves. And that's horrible and wrong. So I'm probably going to end this one here because this has turned into a huge, huge rant, not just on how ChatGPT and Midjourney are going to be changing the future of creative work, but how it's exposing how broken our economy is on a global scale. This is not the first time this has happened, right? This has happened a ton of times. It happened with every major industrial advancement. It happened to farmers and agriculturalists. It happened to machinists. It's happened to just tons and tons and tons of different groups of people as we've industrialized. And now it's going to happen to artists and writers. And it's not a bad thing unless we continue to allow our system to take advantage of us the way we have. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you all for coming by. If you found this useful at all, don't forget to like and subscribe. And have a great day.